Welcome to the Scariest Things podcast, your gateway to the tropes and trends of, not your, it's our, it's everyone's gateway.
Your.
It's the collective your gateway to the tropes and trends of the horror genre. My name is Mike Campbell, and I am joined tonight by
Eric Lee.
All right, tonight is our Diamond Jubilee number 60.
Yay!
60 episodes. 60 episodes, little over, what are we talking here? A little over
16 months.
16 months, a little over a year and a half. Not bad. That's a good clip.
Yeah.
That is us
We're in it.
dedicating our time and our energy and our love for you, bringing you the greatest, the latest, and the greatest, and sometimes not the latest and the greatest, because we did cover stuff from the early 1900s.
And sometimes not the greatest.
And sometimes not the greatest, but we try to give you something, a fresh take, a hot look at the horror genre almost each and every week.
Yeah, trying to get you something hip to things that you may not have been aware of.
Yep.
And
Because there's going to be plenty of people out there that cover Happy Death Day and Pet Cemetery, and you can read a million reviews. I mean, for God's sakes, the Washington Post did like a 2-part review on Us. So there's plenty of people out there writing about the big ticket items. We're going to cover the big ticket items, but we're also going to give you a little something extra.
yes.
Extra. But tonight, what are we talking about tonight?
This
is actually exciting. I think this is very exciting.
This one was actually a lot of fun.
Did someone suggest this to you?
Yeah, this is our own Scariest Amy Faust. Said, hey,
Good job.
what,
Why is Amy not here then?
You know,
she suggested, then she just like drops it in our lap and
she told me the one that she wanted to have put on the show, and I agreed with her. I think that
what
I've got one of my selections is hers, but what we were talking about is the great horror opening scenes.
Yep.
Of all time.
All right, and we're not talking about the title cards.
No,
we're not talking about the opening credits. We're talking about the first scene that establishes the film.
And I think it's remarkable actually how few horror movies actually start with a big action set piece or big scares from the get-go. Most horror movies invest you into a build of story. Do you think like
I'm gonna go big disagree on that one, and we will talk about all those things.
All right.
Because I got like scares aplenty, and actually, really all the films, save for maybe one. Yeah, in the opening scene, scares aplenty.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
I think, but you think about some of the great horror movies of all time,
right?
You think Exorcist, you think Shining.
Mm-hmm.
They build.
Oh yeah,
they build to their scares,
right? But the greatest films of all time are not necessarily known for the best introductions in horror films of all time. And although I think the opening sequence to The Shining is very, very, very deceptive.
Yep.
With that just droning, horrible, terrifying sequence of sound matched against the bucolic Colorado Rockies.
Right.
It's very off-putting.
But we're, I think in my selections, I think that they are a lot of them are establishing from the get usually the protagonist and the villain at the same time, and that we're getting I think fantastic table setters. Well, actually, you know what? I think we'll have to let it roll, and we'll review this. And I had a really hard time sort of picking and choosing between a lot of these.
Oh my God, there's so many.
I think I'm going to point to what I think is the greatest one, but it's everybody. If you ever do the Google, and Mike and I are both guilty of this.
Yes.
Of saying greatest horror movie opening scenes of all time. There is a consensus number one, and it was my number one. And I looked at it and was like, I don't, because I think everybody knows it.
I think I know.
Do you think you know what it is?
Well, Scream.
No.
Oh, what?
Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that opening sequence is is a masterpiece of
It
how
is.
to open a horror movie. Scream is another. That's usually up in the top 5.
Although, you know the thing that bugs me about the opening scene in Jaws? This is a very small thing. It's clear that it's shot during the day, and they just use
a night filter.
They just use a night filter on the camera because you can see the sun glistening off of the waves in the water.
Moonlight, come on.
Yeah, not so much. That's the only thing that bugs me about it. But I mean, Steven Spielberg was a young guy. He was a young man at the time, and he was perfecting his craft.
And his damn shark was broken, so he had to figure something else out. And yeah, it hit it out.
That's the only thing now that when I watch that I actually do notice that in the scene. But it is a great opener.
And you get the shark's eye perspective.
Although
and that whole
thing. I do like that opener. I don't think I'd even put that in my top 10 or even top 20.
And perhaps maybe it's one of the most. I think you'd have to say it's one of the most famous opening.
Oh, famous, but yeah, I don't know that it's. I don't think it's one of the scariest openings.
For me, it put a. I've said this multiple times before, but that opening sequence affected my behavior for the rest of my life.
Oh, sure.
So I think that
you stopped right. Going to beach parties and drinking and
stripping myself naked, and
picking up men and making out on beaches.
Right? Yeah, those days are behind me now. I'm an old man.
That makes sense. All right, for our Diamond Jubilee, let's get right after this.
Okay,
what do you got for your number one?
Okay,
horror opener. Oh, before you go, the one. This is the other small caveat I will make, or maybe small sort of recognition that I came to with this topic, which is just because it's a great opener
doesn't mean it's a great movie.
Does not mean it's a great movie.
All 4 of my movies start great and then fade, I think.
Mine don't, but yeah, it is amazing because in a lot of the movies we've talked about. I mean, obviously Jaws held through, Scream held all the way through, but there are a lot of films that have really, really wonderful openers. But then when you get into the film itself, it's like, this isn't such a great film.
I've got a number of those on the. Actually, not all of them. I think a couple of these are. And actually, I'm going to lead with one that actually is strong front to back.
All right, break it down.
Now, and let's see if you recognize what this is. Okay, right. You have a young woman, open with a young woman running down
Friday the 13th.
Tree-lined boulevard.
Jaws.
And she's panicking. It's like early in the morning. She's running down a suburban street, clearly in a panic.
It follows.
Oh,
this is on my list too.
Is it?
And I got no backup. So,
okay, collision.
So that's okay.
Yeah, no, but you don't see the pursuer. She runs out of real estate, lands at the beach. Why don't you go ahead and you can go, because I got backup. So I'll give this one to you.
All right. Well, It Follows is, I think, one of the more terrifying opening scenes because it is shot from a single camera that is parked in the middle of the street, and the woman runs down the street in a complete panic. One of the neighbors says, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Is everything okay?" And she runs basically around the camera back to her house that she's run out of, and run towards the dad who has come out of the house, who is also saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And she runs past him straight to a car and starts driving. She runs to the car in the driveway and starts driving away. And they cut to her sitting on the beach in a very hysterical state, where she sits on the beach calling someone, we don't know who, and apologizing. And it's this persistent apology about, "I'm so sorry. I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm so sorry. I screwed up. I can't believe I did this." The whole thing takes place.
I think she's calling her father, actually.
Yeah. The whole thing takes place in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They fade out from that scene where she's on the phone at night. At this point, it's at night. They fade back in, and it's a day shot, and initially you see her face, and she's lying on the beach, and it looks like she's passed out on the beach, and they slowly pan across her body, and you realize
She's a
her
pretzel.
right leg is bent at the knee or broken off at the knee and bent completely backwards. And again, kind of as I was talking about with The Shining, the thing that's so off-putting about it is that it's paired against this beautiful bucolic setting, this beautiful pristine beach, and this woman lying on the beach who you're already pulling for, you're already emotionally invested in, because she obviously has some issues. She obviously is, she's trying to make amends to her parents for something. You don't know what it is, though. You have literally no idea what she's apologizing for and why she's in such a panic state.
It's a fantastic table setter for the movie.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It just if you just watch it, and it, as I said, clocks in at about 2 minutes. This film was David Robert Mitchell is the director. This was his sophomore effort. One of the reviewers characterized this as formalist horror.
Huh.
I'm not sure what that means.
I don't know. That sounds a little bit heady.
I'm not a film student, but formalist horror sounds interesting, and we will take formalist horror in that it is weirdly, the whole scene is weirdly controlled, but it's also kind of, it's very abstract.
Right. I think one of the other
which also I think lends to kind of the off-putting nature of it, is that you're having a difficult time trying to get your head around it.
It gives you the consequences of what the driving plot is in this movie.
Right.
If whatever it follows catches you,
Right.
this is the consequence. But it doesn't give away the fundamental. It saves the great story. Of why
what is
following and why for later in the movie, because so it doesn't spoil that, and I think which is fantastic.
It's an invisible shape-shifting monster that you don't know, can't see. It's not Freddy, it's not Jason, it's not a shark, it's not a thing that you can actually look at and identify and understand and say, okay, here's how we're going to defeat Freddy, Jason, the shark, etc. You don't know what it is. Therefore, you have no idea how to defeat it or how to contend with it.
I think, this is one of those movies where I think if we hold the conceit a little bit for the audience who hasn't seen it, I think it you don't want to spoil too much, but you can say,
I'm stopping there.
That there is a way of defeating this thing, but the guilt and the and your conscience as to whether you're willing to try and pass this curse off,
right,
it's a moral dilemma. And I think that our protagonist, it's one of the reasons why It Follows has some real resonance, is that the characters, you can understand what they're going through and their decision-making process to confront this thing, and you know what the consequences are. I mean,
right.
and I think that's what I think with Jaws.
Well, the consequences are death,
right? But not just death, but painful, grisly,
right,
horrible death that you can't escape from.
Yep.
And
all right, that was my number 1. What is your number 4?
Wow, I went all the way to the front.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Okay, well, I'm going to bring in Amy's request.
All right.
Which I think is also, I think the movie is okay.
Okay.
And it is this is a 2002 film called Ghost Ship.
Oh.
And it's kind of like one of those one-off. I think it's a Dimension film, so it's got a large cast of red shirts who gets gets chewed up and stuff like that. But
this is Spooky Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah, and the main crux of the story, and this one isn't one. It's a haunted ship.
I honestly have never seen Ghost Ship.
It's worth watching for the opening sequence.
Okay.
The opening sequence is completely bananas gonzo.
All right.
Because what they do is they open on the deck of a ship of this. It's an Italian cruise liner. This is the Antonio Grazia, and this is in 1967, and there's a lovely woman singing senza fine, doing so, and they're all and these very wealthy people are all dancing on the deck, and then you see in the background there's a winch that's getting tightened, the ship maintenance or whatever, and you can see it getting tightened and tightened, and then it follows this cable around the deck of the ship.
Ooh.
And everybody's having a grand time.
Right.
And so the captain's on deck, and he's dancing with this little girl she gets to dance with the captain. It's very elegant, and it's beautiful. It's actually a very, very, very well composed shot. It's kind of like they threw everything they had in this movie to this opening scene, and it's like it's something. I think it's sort of concurrent with Titanic in the era.
Sounds about right.
But then what happens as the passengers are having a grand old time? There's a snap, and the cable cuts loose, and it cuts through across the entire deck, and you see jackets and dresses flutter, and surprised looks from everybody. The music stops,
right,
and then you see bodies slide in half. Like the entire everybody on deck gets completely eviscerated. They fall to the deck. Limbs are still twitching. People are trying to get their bodies have been sliced in half. They're trying to put themselves back together to no avail.
Yeah.
The captain, who's been dancing with the little girl, had seen what was coming. He tried to protect her by covering her up, and she looks at him, and he gives her this tragic look, and then the top half of his head slides off and lands on the deck. She screams. It is a hot mess of a sequence. This
gore
is like
filled.
This is about a 2-3 minute sequence. This
is
before the credits roll.
Sure.
And it spoils absolutely nothing, because what this does is this gives you the background of why the ship is haunted. Because it was a tragic accident, and eventually the little girl is the lone survivor, and she's a ghost.
Because she was so short, the cable
That's
missed
right, the cable missed her, exactly. And so
right, Ghost Ship.
It's a fantastic opener.
Okay.
I think the movie is okay.
What would you give the rest of Ghost Ship? Like if you were to go out of 5 stars, what would
5-star opening with a 2.5-star movie.
Oh, okay.
All right. I think, but it's got
see, It Follows is a 5-star movie with a 5-star opening.
Yes, no, it's a different league. But this is one of those cases where it caught my attention right away.
Yeah.
It's got I think Juliana Margulies and Carl Urban, and it's got a pretty good cast to it.
Not Keith Urban.
No, sang some songs. Hey, but
that was good. That was a good Keith Urban.
I don't know what he sounds like.
That sounded good to me.
Okay, so anyway, so that is a sort of a chop shop kind of a horror film that was like seeing a lot of like 13 Ghosts,
right,
or that kind of stuff, where it was franchise horror and that.
Well, they were trying to establish franchises.
Yeah, and I don't know if they did a Ghost Ship 2 or not. I don't think it was particularly that successful, but because you can watch a lot of these openers on YouTube, because you're allowed to just have segments of it.
Right.
You can see it for free.
Right.
For the opening couple of minutes. It's
pretty
cool.
We will post all of these to thescariestthings.com.
Yeah.
1T website. So you will see once we put up this episode, you will be able to see all 8 of these openers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was my number 4. Now we have to go back to your number 4.
My number 4 is a 1963 film, British horror film, directed by Robert Weiss and adapted by Nelson Gidding from the novel The Haunting of Hill House. This, of course, is the book. The Haunting of Hill House came out in 1959. The film, the 1963 film, is The Haunting. And I'm going to read this here because this is the opener. Dr. John Markway narrates the history of the 90-year-old Hill House, which is basically the opening, and they show you a whole series of. They sort of like it's kind of like a dramatization of his narration. So you're listening to his narration, and then you're watching his narration sort of happen live. But he talks about the 90-year-old Hill House, which was constructed in Massachusetts by Hugh Crane. as a home for his wife, and she died when her carriage crashed against a tree as she approached the house for the first time. Crane remarried, but his second wife died in the house from a fall down the stairs, and Crane's daughter, Abigail, lived in the house for the rest of her life, never moving out of the nursery. She died calling for her nurse companion. The companion inherited the house, but later hanged herself from the spiral staircase in the library. Hill House was eventually inherited by Mrs. Sanderson, although it has stood empty for some time.
Yeah, and all of this was done. The narration ran through, but they showed you all of these events,
Right.
and Robert Wise, man, that guy knows how to he knows how to lens a film.
Oh yeah, I think Martin Scorsese said this was like one of his favorite. I think it's like one of his favorite movies of all time. The house itself is you can go visit the house itself. It is Eddington Park, which is now apparently the Eddington Park Hotel, which has the grounds near the village of Eddington, Warwickshire.
Road trip.
Warwickshire. That was used for the apparently for the exterior shots. According to actor Russ Tamblyn, who is in the film, I think he plays
He's the young man.
Yeah. Robert Weiss allegedly approached he approached a society, an occult group in Great Britain, who apparently kept track of British haunted houses, and they gave him a list of haunted houses, and the production designer Elliot Scott was sent around the countryside to look at each and every one of these haunted houses, and then Weiss personally selected Eddington Park. Whether that's true or not,
it was the right call.
Sure makes a great story.
It was. You and I both loved this movie, and this one was one that I didn't uncover until actually we started doing this podcast.
Ditto. Well, no, it was one that I didn't uncover until we did the top 100, and it made its way. I think it was like 92 or something like that on the top 100 list, and I had never seen it. I had heard of it, obviously, and I just passed it off as an old-timey black and white UK film that wasn't of much interest. But man, oh man, this film, top to bottom, soup to nuts, A to Z, is super scary.
Five-star opener, 5-star movie.
100%. And apparently, it's so scary that apparently Stephen King even attempted in the early 90s to remake the film, and he pitched it under the name Rose Red to another director that we've kind of already talked about tonight, named Steven Spielberg. The project went into turnaround. I think that's a movie term. And a complete script was written, but Spielberg wanted more thrills, and Stephen King wanted more chills. And they couldn't come together. Like Steven Spielberg wanted more like sort of action or Steven Spielberg wanted Spielberg wanted more action, and Stephen King wanted much more horror. He wanted the horror element.
Surprisingly, actually, no. Was that discussion when did you say that was happening?
That was in the early 90s. But wait, that got shelved, and then King returned to it in the late 90s, in 1999, and then Wes Craven took a run at it as well. But he initially worked on a project, but then they eventually abandoned it.
Because the other Haunting, the one with Liam Neeson and Lily Taylor, was like meh.
Yeah, super meh. Super duper meh.
So, I think that, perhaps that was just, I think it should just be left alone now. I think it's
100%.
It's I think preserved for people to go and remember, because this one is not gory. It's not. It's.
No, there's not much.
It is.
There's a little bit of gore, but not much.
No, it's more spooks and chills and mania. I think this is the
right,
entire,
because the protagonist, you like you don't know if she really is going crazy or not. Or if she
Julie Harris,
if Julie Harris is indeed inhabited by ghosts.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got number 3 on your fearsome foursome list?
Well, okay, so this one is, and again, a movie that starts up hot, right? 5-star opener, one of my all-time favorite, and I think this is one of my all-time moments. This is
Go back to podcast number 2.
real early, so I feel safe in coming back to it because I don't know if you guys remember me talking about this
in podcast number 2.
This is High Tension.
Oh yeah, love High Tension.
Oh my God, that it is, and it kills me because this was.
And that pace that they established in that opening scene never stops.
Yeah, unsustainable pace. It was, so I like to think that the first half of this movie was the greatest slasher movie ever done. The back half of the movie made the whole thing come off the rails, and it ended up being a pretty good movie because it was an awesome first act.
I go 80-20.
You think
not 50-50?
You think, yeah, actually,
I'd say like 80% of it is brilliant.
Right.
20% of it's like, oh,
the switch.
Why'd you do that?
Yeah, I think they could have actually,
because the switch does come pretty late in the film.
You're right.
Yeah.
So 80-20, but that last 20% drags the movie down.
Yeah.
In my view, if they could have just followed their original concept and just played it straight, man, oh man, that would have been this. So
super good.
This is Cécile de France is Marie, who is a college student who has gone to hang out with her best friend Alex, and they're staying at Alex's parents' house in rural France, so they can study and relax. And we're barely into the movie. We're like 2 minutes into the movie, and a knock comes at the door after everybody the family is like, so that it's Alex's mom and dad and her little brother,
right?
And knock comes at the door, and a serial killer shows up,
and it's super remote.
Yeah, no, this is rural France.
Yep.
It's idyllic. I mean, it's one of those kinds of things where, this is a one-man home invasion comes knocking at the door.
Oh yeah,
and the kills are swift and nasty, and I think the best thing about this opening sequence is that the villain is clever and vicious
and relentless.
Yeah, and Marie is equal to the task when she has to outthink. There's like this cat and mouse thing with the serial killer. In the end, it's like, and that's one of the self-defeating things at the end of the movie. I'll ask you to watch the movie, and then you'll find out the twist,
right?
But it had a smart villain and a smart protagonist, and people in peril, and then just the seeing the father, the way the father gets dispatched with an armoire to the head kind of a thing, and then it goes like
how long is that opening sequence?
6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Like
okay,
yeah.
All right.
It's but there's actually because it goes. Actually, I think it might run longer than that. I'd have to, because of the relentlessness of it.
Yeah.
The serial killer goes in and takes out everybody in the house.
Well, it feels like
kidnaps Alex.
It feels like it's seconds.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it's all happening in real time.
Yeah. And your heart's racing. Unlike a lot of, I can sit through a lot of slasher movies and it doesn't make me twitch.
Sure.
Right. I mean, you can see you can see that coming.
That's because you're a sociopath.
Yeah. I'm just like, I am this unfeeling, amoral.
Eric's heart is filled with hate.
But this, High Tension's opening moments,
so good.
It's like, white knuckle stuff, just terrifying.
Yep.
So, Alexandra Aja, who's actually got a new film coming out, which I was hoping was going to show up at Open Overlook. Nah.
Yeah.
But it's about a killer, like a woman trapped in a house that's gotten flooded with alligators in the basement.
I know. It looks good. It looks good. And we talked about that in the films we are looking forward to in 2019, episode 51-ish.
Yeah, somewhere's around there. And if they can get an opening sequence for that one.
Yes.
That, it's Crawl, I think is the name of that movie.
I think it's called Alligator.
No, that's been done.
And could be remade. Yeah. All right, so I'm going from a film that started with a 5-star intro and ended as a 5-star film to a film that I'm going to say starts with a 5-star intro, is maybe a 2-star film. This is 1979's When a Stranger Calls.
Yes.
And
100% in agreement on your star definitions.
Yes, and it's the first 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes of this film with Carol Kane are so terrifying and so unnerving. It's really freaky, and this, of course, begat a million similar type horror tropes.
Scream, for example.
Yeah. So it's basically Carol Kane is a babysitter, and she is home alone with the baby. And after a long opening, the increasingly nervous babysitter continues to get phone calls. And this, of course, is in the pre-digital age. These are analog phone calls, and the person on the other end of the line continues to ask her very softly but very ominously and very weirdly, have you checked the children? Have you checked the children? And Carol Kane's anxiety and her neuroses, I mean, she already kind of looks like a terrified mouse to begin with.
She's awfully twitchy.
As a person, that's the look she brings to the table. But when that is layered on top of this person who continues to call over and over and over and very frighteningly ask, have you checked the children?
The ultimate urban legend trope.
It is the ultimate urban legend. And then, of course, it culminates with her name is the Carol Kane's character is Jill. Jill picks up the phone and she screams, thinking it's the killer. She screams, "Just leave me alone!" And the police officer, who she had previously called, Sergeant Sacker, he says, "Jill, this is Sergeant Sacker. Listen to me. We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house."
Oh, no!
Now, a squad car's coming over there right now. Just get out of that house. And then the film falls apart after that. But
and then it becomes a police procedural, and all the scariness goes away.
Right. But that first scene, and I will say, one of my earlier horror movie memories was somehow getting a hold by hook or by crook, by TV or by, seeing it in a theater, watching the trailer and just being like, oh my God, I want no part of this. Yeah. This seems so dark and so grisly and so grindhousey that I don't think my, my whatever 10, 12-year-old brain can can process something like this. But I knew there was something very exciting about it. And it wasn't until many, many years later, probably 30 years later, that you and I decided to pick it up and give it a go, because it was always something that was in the back of my mind that I knew I wanted to watch. Yep. And I'm glad I watched.
Worth it for the first. Now this is a prolonged sequence. This is like a 20-minute sequence.
It is a wee bit longer, but man, oh man, it's good. All right, so what do you got? Number
Before we move on,
before we leave Carol Kane, who will also be featured in The Dead. No, Let the Dead. No, Leave the Dead Alone. No, the new Jim Jarmusch film, The Dead Don't Die.
Yes,
The Dead Don't Die. Yes, Carol Kane is in. She is a zombie, a Chardonnay drinking zombie in The Dead Don't Die.
So your preference, of creepy phone stalker, Black Christmas or Stranger Calls?
Oh boy, when it's they're very different. Because one is in Black Christmas, the phone stalker is...
He's a heavy breather.
He's a heavy breather. It's very sexualized. He's insane and maniacal. Whereas this one is very ominous and controlled. Yeah. So very, very, very different. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's a coin tosser.
Yeah. No, because that's...
I'd flip a coin on that one.
And
both are great, though.
Black Christmas also has a great opener.
Yeah. Oh, boy, does it ever. Yeah. All right, number 3 on your list.
So this is a movie that starts out. This is 5-star opener.
Yeah.
2-star finish.
Ooh, wow! Another
which
one.
which is a sequel to a 4-star opener, 5-star movie in my book.
Wow.
This is 28 Weeks Later.
Oh yeah, with Robert
Carlyle.
Robert Carlyle,
who plays Don
of Drugstore Cowboy fame.
And he is
that's a great opener.
He's holed up in a cottage with an elderly couple, his wife, and a couple of others who are hiding out from the rage zombies.
Yep.
And
we're not really zombies.
They're rage filled people but they do things that zombies do. They will eat flesh. They're killable. They're eminently killable.
Yep.
But they are also very fast and relentless and terrifying. And I know that in the original 28 Days Later, they actually had hired English football players to act as the chasers, so that they actually they were moving at a very fast clip, right? But this one,
shout out to Sunderland there.
Yeah, or East Bromwich, something.
West Bromwich Albion. Come on, Eric.
I know.
Get your Premier League straight.
You could just be happy that I called it football and not soccer. All right, getting back on track here.
Yes.
So this is a sequence where the family has holed up, and if you've seen the first movie, you sort of understand the parameters of what the rage plague does to people. And so the word has gone out that one of their lot had gone out to try and find help and hasn't come back, and there's a young woman who's worried about her boyfriend who's gone out there, and it's like, forget him, he's gone. And a knock comes on the door, and it's a little boy going, let me in, and they
give me some porridge, sir.
And they bring in the little boy, and the little boy had been followed,
right?
And I'm going to call them rage zombies because they bust their way in, and they overwhelm this unfortunate group of people. And Robert Carlyle pulls off one of the great acts of movie cowardice in film history. He abandons his wife and everybody who was in the house to save his own skin. Now, granted,
he starts a running,
and he's being pursued by like 40 rage zombies. Now, at the same time, I think one of the things that as I continued to watch this movie, this was, I think for those of you who listen all the way back from our very first episode, 28 Days Later is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. It was number 3 on my top 10. I think we did a top 10 initially or something like that.
Yep. Top 5.
Top 5. Yeah, right. We didn't do
top 5. Episode number 1. Numero uno.
I love 28 Days Later because I loved the protagonists. I also thought that they were making good decisions.
Yep.
I thought that everything that the emptiness of the London streets, everything was so well set up, beautiful shot. Danny Boyle did a knockout job. This time out, it was a whole movie about terrible decisions that get made.
Right.
It's like and it was an exercise in frustration. But the opening sequence, I think, should have led you to recognize, like, nobody's going to make any smart decisions in this movie. It's like let's run into the tunnels. It's like, why are you running into the tunnels? You can't see anything. Or
when is 28 months later coming?
I don't know the 28. I think at the end of 28 weeks later, they reset it because it's.
There was a script sitting in Hollywood.
Yeah.
With the title page, 28 months later.
Oh, absolutely. And
it's got to be.
And that's probably going to be Europe's overrun at that point. It's probably what that story would be.
Zombie Brexit.
Yeah, this is Brexit the hard way.
It could be 28 months later, Brexit the hard way.
Do it.
I love it.
Okay,
Come on,
chalk
Hollywood.
That one up.
Come on, Hollywood. That's copyrighted. You can't touch it. It's ours.
I think the only comparable cowardly act of a primary character like this, it reminds me of Corporal Upham in Saving Private Ryan,
Oh,
where you're just going, come on, man.
I thought you were going to say Paul Reiser in Aliens.
Well, yeah, that too. But I think I think in both cases, I think Don and Corporal Upham are good people who are just so afraid,
Right.
that they could. Where Paul Reiser is, Burke is a rat,
Right.
and he's the kind of a coward who deserves to get it. Whereas opposed to a good person trying to save themselves and realizing, because truthfully, if he had tried to save his wife, he would have died.
Right. Right.
And it comes back in an interesting way later in the film, but
Fight or flight.
It wasn't worth the remainder of the movie didn't hold up to the opening scene. Unlike 28 Days Later, which had that great waking up in the hospital, Cillian Murphy's Jim character. It's like, hello, is there anybody there? and Robert Kirkman swears up and down that he did not poach that opening for Walking Dead.
Right.
It's like, liar, liar, pants on fire. You took that thing, looks dead on from that.
Right.
I do love the original Walking Dead, the books and the first few seasons of Walking Dead. So I don't begrudge them too much, but the 28 days, 28 weeks later both had great openers.
Yep. Well, the vote's out on 28 months later.
I don't think it's happening.
All right. I beg to differ.
Brexit the hard way.
Brexit the hard way. All right. Speaking of zombies, we're going to stay firmly in the zombie genre with the 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Very similar opener to what I just talked about, actually.
Well, but there's no cowardice.
No, yeah, Sarah.
In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Sarah Polley is actually
it's filled with courage and honor.
Yeah, that's true. I guess to that extent, yeah.
Yeah. So
what
after
an opener.
Yes, after finishing her long shift as a nurse, Sarah Polley, Anna returns to her suburban neighborhood, and her husband Lewis, caught up in just sort of day-to-day life and the humdrum of going to work. They decide to have sort of a date night in bed, which is filled with some steamy action and a little dinner and some TV watching. I think they watch like Amazing Race or something like that.
Survivor.
The Apprentice, Survivor, something like that.
Which would have been ironic.
Yeah. And then, of course, throughout the course of this very short opener, there's all these wonderful injects involving sort of news coverage about the zombie apocalypse that is happening in real time. And they continue to get those on TV. And then the next morning, they wake up after their date night. We'll put date night in quotes. And the little neighborhood, one of the neighborhood girls, you can see her. It's this wonderful pull focus where you can kind of vaguely make
see
out
her silhouette.
Yeah, you see her silhouette, but it's this pull focus where she's. You see her at the end of the hall, and you can't quite make out her face. The husband, Lewis, makes out that it is indeed her, and as she slowly but surely, not in a super weird way, approaches the end of the hall, the focus comes, or the pull focus comes into focus, and you realize she is
missing half her face.
She's missing about half of her face, and then she jumps on her, infecting Lewis. And then Anna, Lewis's wife, is forced to face her. She's forced to face her husband, and ultimately deal with that. She is able to escape Lewis and the little girl, get into her car. And then it kind of goes from...
Oh, the dolly shot and the helicopter shot that Zack Snyder does is just crazy.
I was just going to say, it goes from, in this really like quick, like lickety-split fashion, it goes from kind of like this microscopic perspective where you're in the bedroom, you're in the bed, you're with Anna and Lewis, to this macroscopic perspective where everything... It slowly gets bigger and bigger, where it's like you go from her neighborhood and you see, people within the neighborhood falling to pieces, people shooting each other. And as she goes outside of her neighborhood, it gets bigger and you see
Milwaukee is burning.
Milwaukee is burning. You see, I think in one of the most powerful, shocking, really shocking, which it doesn't make sense that this would be shocking for a horror film, but you see a car plow into T-bone a tanker truck into a gas station. The whole thing explodes.
It's pure chaos.
Yeah, and you're like your brain can't process all this stuff, and then of course it cuts to she crashes the car. It cuts to the Johnny Cash song. Oh gosh, I'm gonna blank on the name of the Johnny Cash song, but it cuts to the Johnny Cash. When the Man Comes Around. Cuts to the Johnny Cash song, and then there's this wonderful sort of montage of film clips of people beating the crap out of each other and riots in the streets and everything else, and it's when I was talking a little bit to Matt Howell, who has been on the podcast before, about this opening scene, he relayed to me that when he watched it, when he saw it the first time in the theater, he was so shocked. He looked around to other people in the theater to sort of ask, "Are you watching what I'm watching? Are you seeing this?"
It is a great opener, and I think sometimes people forget how good of a film craftsman Zack Snyder is. I think he's gotten so much shit for
Superman versus Batman.
Batman versus Superman, and his failure at Justice League. That
right.
It's like, the man knows how to shoot an action sequence.
I think you should just get back to horror, man. You should stop taking these big paychecks. Yeah, I mean, he's made his money, clearly. Yeah. So get back to doing something real. Get back to doing something
Yeah, I think that's it's in your wheelhouse, buddy.
Well, right, and you will find no bigger naysayer for the Dawn of the Dead remake than I. I mean, before that came out, I was absolutely dead set opposed to it, and it has become one of my favorite movies of all time.
Because Dawn of the Dead first one is your number one of all time.
It is, yeah. And this one didn't make my top 25, but it's close. It's up there.
That opening sequence for the first Dawn of the Dead is also iconic.
It is.
Night of the Living Dead is one of the best ever. Also, I mean, it's like that Romero's those first two out of the gate, man. Something else.
Yep. All right. So what do you got for your number?
My number one.
Number one.
I think. Have you done, so let's.
That was mine. That was my number 2/number one.
Right.
So I'm done.
So yeah.
I'm done.
So
I'm out. I'm tapped out.
I'm going back to a 2001 film.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked about this one, surprisingly.
What?
But it has it's got one of the most fun opening sequences. This is the pure embodiment of road rage horror. Jeepers Creepers.
Oh, yeah. That's solid.
This movie, I think this movie 5-star opener, 3-star movie, right? I think maybe 3.5. I think it was still a pretty good movie. I think the creeper monster kind of it wasn't what I really. I think after a while it's like, nah, it was scarier from the beginning. It's just keep him in the truck.
Yeah.
But I think. What we establish is the brother and sister combination of Trish and Derry, Justin Long and Gina Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
They're returning home from college, and it's got this great kind of this chemistry of brother sister snarkiness, and they're cruising along in their old Cadillac and playing sort of this. They're driving down this rural road and they're playing the license plate game and trying to
That's right. Yeah.
And then this funky beat up old truck comes run. You can see it in this great long shot through the rear window, and you can see it slowly coming up, and then faster and faster, and it comes up like it's got this grinning face of death, kind of an old rusty truck, where it's like someone punched it in the grill like a loose tooth. And it's completely unrecognizable contraption of a truck. It's like I can't quite place it. It's a 30s truck, a 40s truck, and it's on a supercharger. Why is it so fast? And it tries
possessed.
And it's trying. Tries to run them off the road. And they're going, God, get out of the. It's like, just pull over, let him get past. It's like, why is he doing this? And then it passes them, and on the license plate it says beating you. It's BEATNG
Right.
you as the license plate, and it's like, oh, that's weird. And then I go, you fucker, what are you doing? He's like, you could have killed us. And then the truck races off in the distance, and then you get a little bit more sort of brother sister banter, and then they have to pull off to the side of the road, and they both have to go pee, and so then they're sitting there talking about their plans, and they get back in the car, and as they drive past, they see there's this ramshackle house, and you see this dude in a heavy trench coat and a big hat, and he's got what looks clearly a body in a sheet, bloody sheet, and chucks it into this. Into a vent shaft, and it was like, oh God, did you see that? Like, no, it's a bloody sheet. It's like, that's a body. Yeah, and it's like, oh shit, he's coming after us. And the truck starts. It's like you hear the truck roar up. It's like, oh no, we gotta get away, and it runs them off the road. And that's and the truck keeps on going, and they're just like, it's like, oh my God, what we've got to warn somebody about this. And this is sort of this like pre-rural cell phone kind of thing.
Right.
And so they sort of they wander their way back to the to that ramshackle house. Truck's not there. And it's like, we should go and investigate this. It's like, don't do it, man.
No, you
don't do it. And then it was
no,
like,
you shouldn't.
And that was like famous bad decisions. But I thought, I think that it was. I actually kind of expected Justin Long was going to have a bigger career than he's had. I thought he was a really fun young actor.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had a reasonably stable career. Gina Phillips has gone on to do television work.
Right. Now, which was your favorite though
of the Jeepers Creepers movies?
Jeepers Creepers 1, Jeepers Creepers 2, or Jeepers Creepers 3?
Oh, the first one. I mean, the second.
have you seen the other two?
I've seen the second one, which is the school bus.
All right.
Which is a killing by numbers. I mean, it's franchise horror, and that's not my bag. And by this point, I kind of knew what the
right
where the creeper was kind of this winged bat thing with a kind of a gargoyle like thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and it was. I thought it was effective, but it's not.
That's just money grubbing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah. And if you talk to talk to Amy, she has a loop on repeat of Jeepers Creepers 3 where the creeper trips on his own, falling out of a barn door and falls flat on his face. And it's like, and she goes, "This is so pathetic." And but she thought it's so funny. But the move that Jeepers Creepers 3 was terrible. And the other thing is that the director apparently is like a pedophile or
that's no good.
Like a child rapist or something weird.
All right,
like,
we don't want to promote that.
Talking about Creeper.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's all
right. Let's go down. Let's go down our list of best horror film openers of all time.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to go with. Well, I'm going to start with the one I was talking about, which was It Follows, and then I'm going to talk about Dawn of the Dead remake 2004, and then. Of course, the 1979, I think one of the best openers of all time, When a Stranger Calls. And then finally, I'm wrapping out the evening with 1963's The Haunting.
So my number 4 was 2002's Ghost Ship with the spectacular cable slice and dice.
Yep.
I have 2003's Gonzo High Tension opener. Followed by my number 2, 28 Weeks Later, from 2007. And then finishing off with Jeepers Creepers, 2001.
All right.
And, I think there were so many good movies that I also would have liked, I think, but I've talked about them at greater length. Like Black Sunday has a great opener.
Scream, Black Sunday. Oh, man, the opener, well, speaking of Christmas movies, the opener for Silent Night, Deadly Night is, oh, my goodness. That's one of the best. That's so
badass.
So gruesome.
I think there's a treasure trove, just where again, opening sequences that you hope that the movie can sustain that energy. And I think you picked movies that were more successful. I think to keep with the exception of
When Stranger Calls.
Yeah,
All the other ones, I would go like almost all of them were like 5 out of 5.
Yeah, that Dawn of the Dead one was
Yeah.
that was
So good.
one of my favorites. I figured again, this is I always profess this, but it's like that's a Mike Campbell opener if I've ever seen one. So
All right, let's get to grave digging. What do we got for grave digging tonight?
okay, well, this one by the time we actually post this
Yep.
podcast, I will have posted. There's a one of the great things about actually doing what we do nowadays is we get contacted by filmmakers.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, hey, would you be willing to take a look at my film? And there's an Israeli director named Asaf Livni who sent me a film called My First Time.
Oh.
I haven't posted it yet because it's not publicly can be posted until next Monday.
Okay.
But
So we're on an embargo.
Yeah, it's
an embargoed film.
It is great. It is a short
Have
film.
you've watched it?
Yeah, it's only about 12 minutes long.
Oh, good. Okay.
But it is, the title is suggestive, and it is it's kind of sexy in that.
Sure.
But then you realize, no, that's not what this is about.
Uh-oh.
And
It's
then
like It Follows.
But then each little twist is like, oh no, that's not what I expected, and that's not what I expected.
Oh, good.
And it's really it's gory, it's funny, it's sexy, and and as many little plot twists in 12 minutes as you can possibly get.
And it's fresh. It's hot. It's 2019.
It's Hebrew horror.
Hebrew horror.
Yeah,
That's
it's a first.
That's a new one.
I have yet to see an Israeli horror movie. This is it's from. I asked him briefly. It's like, hey, where did you shoot this? And he goes, Tel Aviv.
Wow.
But he said, please wait until he goes. I'd love you to take a look. And I said, watched it. It's awesome. And he goes, hold off on it for just a little bit.
Right.
So
Scariest Things
stay tuned.
podcast goes international. We are not afraid.
All right.
Also, things we are not afraid of. This is a little PSA, public service announcement.
Public service
announcement
announcement with guitars.
Stay away from, and I don't know why Netflix continues to turn out such crappy horror films, but the most recent one that they just put out with Stanley Tucci and the John Corbett, the hunky John Corbett.
From Northern Exposure.
This, is, of course, is 2019's The Silence. This film is so crappy and so terrible. I would have given it 0 stars had the bat-like creatures, the Vesps, that are causing the Bat-Armageddon, the Batmageddon.
Portmanteau that.
Yes. If they weren't so cool looking, I would have given it 0 stars because this film is so crappy, so terrible, so uninteresting.
When did Netflix become a dumping ground for bad horror movies?
Well, the thing that's crazy is it's not a dumping ground. They're actually going out and creating, or they are putting their imprint on all these crappy horror films. And they are doing such a terrible, terrible job with it. And I think it's got to be somebody over at Netflix just saying to themselves, hey, you know what? Horror is the hot thing. So let's just figure it out.
That Quiet Place? That was a hit.
Yeah.
Let's do that again.
Let's do that again. And guess what? It don't work. Probably most offensively is the young woman. I'm going to blank on the actress's name, but she plays a deaf girl in the film, and of course that's the twist: is that she's deaf, and the bat-like creatures, the Vesps, have super sensitive hearing. Oh, gee, what a great twist! It was of course done much better and with much more aplomb with
a real deaf actress.
With a real deaf actress in A Quiet Place. In this case, she barely signs. Half the time she doesn't read lips, and we're just expected to believe that she's somehow some lip reading savant. She reacts to noises that clearly happen on camera. When her dog barks, she reacts to the dog. And according to many people who are versed in American Sign Language, she gets it totally wrong.
Oh, see,
it's just like, and the thing that really, I guess, watching it, not being somebody who has had a lot of interaction with people who are hearing impaired or people that regularly use ASL, American Sign Language, the film to me was just straight up lazy and offensive.
Yeah,
Well, I don't
and
normally get
it's-
offended by those kind of things, but
it's
it was
also
just,
super cynical to follow up with. I mean, because it seems like Robert, our one of our authors and good buddy.
Yep.
He's got there's a term for this you do these cheap knockoffs on something super successful and you repackage it and you
the term is lazy.
so Netflix, knock it off.
Yeah, I know.
Folks, Shudder is the way to go if you're gonna. Now, Netflix does some other cool stuff. Although when they're pull the Marvel stuff, it's
right.
What do you got left? But if you're a horror fan, put your money to Shudder and Amazon Prime. There's more.
100%.
There's a lot. There's more library there.
Yep, 100%.
Or find yourself a good local video rental place if it still exists, because it's at this point it'll be an artisan shop like Movie Madness.
Yes. I'm going to take us out with a tagline from 1979. It's When a Stranger Calls. Fear is the message. Every babysitter's nightmare becomes real. A terrifying classic.